And the third kind of line we drew were those that were in standard form. And when we did the ones that were in standard form, we found our x and our y intercept. Yes, you could go ahead and rearrange it and solve it for y, but to me that's a whole lot more work. So I'm just going to find my x and my y intercept. If y is 0, gets rid of the y, and so I'm going to take negative 12 divided by 4, which is negative 3. If x is 0, gets rid of the x, I'm going to take negative 12 divided by a positive 3, which is a minus 4. So my x-intercept is minus 3, my y-intercept is minus 4. I need a dashed line. On Alex, you have to draw it solid and change it to dashed. I'm just going to make it dashed. Now here's the tricky part. Because I didn't go through the whole process of rearranging and solving for y, I can't just say y is less than because I don't know unless I solve my equation. So what we're going to do is we're going to test. We're going to test the point 0, 0. Why are we going to test 0, 0? Well, first of all, pretty much everybody knows where 0, 0 is on the graph. I hope you know where 0, 0 is on the graph. And it's easy to test. You could really pick the point 5, 6 if you wanted to, or 2, negative 3 if you wanted to, or whatever value you want to use. I'm going to test the point 0, 0 because it's easy. So what I'm doing is saying 4 times 0 plus 3 times 0, is that less than negative 12? Putting 0 in for x and 0 in for y. If I put 0 in for x and y, that makes that whole side 0. Is 0 less than a negative number? Is 0 less than a negative? No. No. 0 is not less than negative 12. That means that no, I don't want to shade the point I tested, which was 0, 0. Well, if I'm not going to shade the 0, 0, that means I have to shade the other side of my line. So that means on this problem, I end up shading over here. It actually does end up being less than when I solve it, because if I solve this one, I'm going to divide by a positive 3, which isn't going to flip my inequality. If I divide by a negative, I got to reverse that inequality sign, and that's why you have to go through and solve it to make sure your sign doesn't get flipped anywhere in the solving. So number 12. We are graphing the inequality. Negative x plus 3y is less than 6. Since it's in standard form, we're going to go ahead and find our x and our y intercept. So if I put 0 in for y, I'm going to have to take 6 and divide it by that negative 1 that's in front of the x. 6 divided by negative 1 is negative 6. If I put 0 in for the x, I'm going to take 6 divided by a positive 3, which is 2. So x is negative 6, y is positive 2. I look here and say, oh, I got to have a dashed line. You're going to draw it solid on Alex, change it to a dashed line. Then I'm going to say, okay, because I didn't solve my equation for y, I'm going to test the point 0, 0. So, negative 0 plus 3 times 0, is that less than 5? Is that 5 or 6? That was a 6. Can't see through my scribbling. Is that less than 6? Well, if I put 0 in for x and 0 in for y, that whole side is 0. Is 0 less than 6? Well, yeah, 0 is less than a positive number. Yes. So you do shade the 0, 0. So look at my graph. The 0, 0 is right here. That's the side I want to shade. And so I click on my little shading tool. It adds all those little dots in there. And it shaded everything under my line. Number 9. Nope, number 13. How about I go to the right one? Number 13. Again, we are graphing our inequality. This time we want our line to be solid. I always like to write that on there to make sure I checked. And so again, I'm going to find my x and my y intercept. if I put 0 in for y, this one's not going to come out so nice, but I have that plot point tool. I'm going to have negative 9 over 2. So negative 9 halves, or negative 4 1/2. And then if I take negative 9 divided by 3, I get negative 3. So on here, we're just going to estimate where negative 4 1/2 is. But otherwise, when you get that fraction, you've got that plot point anywhere tool, and you can type it in. So x is at negative 4 1/2. Y is at negative 3. My line is going to be solid. And then I'm going to do my testing. So I'm going to test 0, 0. So 2 times 0 plus 3 times 0, is that greater than or equal to negative 9? This whole side will be 0. Is 0 greater than negative 9? Sure is. 0 is always greater than a negative number. So we're going to shade where the 0, 0 is, which is above this line. Now all of these examples we had, none of them had that negative coefficient in for y, so it might look like, oh, I just could have followed that symbol. You could, if this is a positive in front of there. If there's a negative in front of our y, then it ends up flipping that sign the other direction. All right, so we've graphed regular inequalities.